Welcome to the Money Healing Club podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Duncan. I'm a certified financial therapist and art therapist and founder of the Money Healing Club, which is a place where even the most financially avoidant folks can get therapy-informed support. Reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not replace mental health care or financial advice. Please take care with where you get your advice. So what can you do when words alone fall short to process what you're going through? Well, I'm here to say, make an image of it. This is the question I brought into this conversation today with my dear friend and fellow art therapist, Bonnie Walchuk. Bonnie and I met way back in grad school, and I have been so inspired watching her blend her creativity with her clinical care ever since. She is my go-to for professional consultations about art therapy, as well as one of my dearest personal friends. Bonnie Walchuk is a board-certified art therapist and licensed marriage and family therapist who spent years supporting people through cancer care, medical trauma, grief, loss, chronic illness, major life transitions with such compassion, integrity, deep listening, and creativity. She's also the president and founder of Dream Big Wellness, a Seattle-based nonprofit dedicated to increasing equitable access to art therapy and integrative wellness services, including workshops, retreats, sliding scale individual care, community programs, so much stuff going on. She does this so that more people can access healing in ways that words alone can't reach. I'm proud to be on their board of directors. Learn more and support their programs and mission at dreambigwellness.org. In this episode, you're going to walk away with three things. Number one, a clear sense of what art therapy actually is and isn't, and why you don't need to be good at art for it to be deeply transformative. Actually, the ugly art can sometimes be the best thing to make. Two, you're going to get simple art-based practice that you can try at home to help make sense of feelings that are too big or too vague or too tangled to put into words. And I really hope you walk away with a new perspective on how creativity and body awareness and meaning making all work together to support healing, especially when life feels overwhelming, and it might right now. Art is a powerful way of knowing. So if you want to know about creative ways to settle your nervous system, make an image out of grief, or simply have a space to feel, Bonnie's grounded insight and warmth in this conversation will meet you exactly where you are. She reminds us, bring your stick figures, guys. All right, let's talk about what we don't usually say when we talk about art therapy with Bonnie Walchuk. Okay, Bonnie, tell me in the plainest language, what is art therapy? When people ask, what is art therapy? How do you usually answer?
Yeah, I usually say art therapy is a mental health profession that is guided by a art therapist who has a master's degree in art therapy and has done some postgraduate work and supervision in art therapy. So most art therapists or some art therapists have both a dual training in a mental health profession as well as art therapy profession.
Very cool. Right. This is not like arts and crafts, folks. Like, this is a profession that requires graduate training and is credentialed and all that stuff.
Yes.
Do you find yourself answering, like, what is art therapy not?
Oh yeah, definitely. So, and I do a lot of presentations on art therapy, and in most of my presentations, I include that too. So, one of the things that I usually say is art therapy, there's no art experience required to do art therapy. We're not interested in necessarily like what your art looks like or creating your best art or making any kind of artistic thing that you want to hang on the wall. We're not trying to use art as a class for improving your skill. And I think definitely what art therapy is not, it's not like fun arts and crafts time. It's not only for kids, it's not for artists, it's not where we're gonna come and have like playtime or fun time. And even though sometimes it does end up being fun, that's not necessarily the thing that we're using as art therapists. We're using art as a way to be able to process life's most challenging moments and really difficult experiences. A lot of those moments can be traumatic moments that come up in art. So we're really processing really deep stuff with art. However, there's all different ways that art can be used, and in groups or some other experiences, there might be laughter, there might be fun along with it. Um, but we're not using it just like for kids and for making something. I think what we get a lot as art therapists is how to improve skill, because art has a history of being in this like skill-based, and it is a skill-based practice, or if you keep practicing art, then you can learn how to draw something a certain way. But we're not looking about, excuse me, about how to make art a certain way. We're looking about how to use art as a tool for processing our emotional and psychological experiences.
I love that. Thank
Yeah.
you. And yeah, I find that a lot of folks, oh, my cousin's artistic, they would love it, or they're an artist. And while absolutely open to that, I find that people who have like a lot of experience in art often struggle with art therapy because it's not about product, because it's about process, because it's often about making something that you don't like or that is ugly or is not, doesn't follow design principles. And while art therapists, like we have to have a lot of background training in all the classic visual arts of all medium. And so a lot of us, obviously come from this from an artistic background. The work, I don't know, I always kind of joke, like, I think my first challenge when we went to grad school is making something that didn't look good.
Yeah,
I think that was a real challenge. It still kind of is sometimes, although I'm on the other side of that now. Like, I make ugly art all the time because it's the process.
right. We're not here to make your art look better. And I think when you're coming from, like, as you said, we have to have this art background. And so when we're coming into art therapy training and we're looking at our art and trying to think about how to make it look better, what can we do differently? And that's not what we're doing in art therapy at all. You know, one of the ways that I describe art therapy is more like our minds, bodies, and hearts are holding a lot and trying to get what is going on inside of us out on paper or out in front of us so that we can look at it a different way and we can process that in maybe a tangible way that we can do through nonverbal processing than what we can do through describing, trying to describe what we're feeling. So if we think about art therapy as a way of getting out what's going on inside of us, that maybe doesn't look like good, pretty art that we want to critique and make better, right?
That's why the client's at art therapy,
Yeah.
because life doesn't feel like that on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of how I describe this process, and when I'm working with people as well, like coming into art, I think I've said this in some presentations before that people, we pair these two words together, art and therapy, and then say this is going to be fun or this is going to be a great experience. And that's not, those two words have a history. Both of it like kind of comes in with judgment or criticism, or am I not doing something good enough, or I'm not doing something right and I need to fix something. Classically, from like the history of therapy, history of art, and then we're changing this dynamic saying this will be helpful. So it takes time to kind of get there and experience it yourself to feel like, how can this be really helpful? And there's so many moments, usually by like second or third session, that it's like, oh, this is what this is about. And that's great. Yeah.
Right, because so often I think when I talk to people about art therapy, like there's a lot of respect, and like, oh, I get that, but also I can only make stick figures. I'm like, bring your stick figures.
Yeah.
That's great. Like that's not, I think there are some layers
Mhm.
because so often if we received any kind of judgment as a kid about art making, I mean, often it takes that like one teacher or one friend to say something critical when kids are often at a very delicate stage at like older childhood where they want to make something look realistic, and it's hard, right? Because they also don't have the skills to do it, but they really want to. And it's such a special time because if there's any criticism, if they face too much judgment or self-judgment and they stop, that's often the last time someone has tried to draw. And then the kids who are lucky enough to like have the right kind of supports or whatever it is to get through that awkward phase, they're the ones who can get onto the next stage of like say drawing realistically, or getting on the other side of that inner critic. And so
Yeah.
I kind of let my groups, my clients know, like if you draw like a kid, it's probably because that's the last time you drew,
Hmm.
because I got stopped there.
Right. Got stopped there. And usually, like you said, there was some kind of experience that stopped it from, that there was some kind of criticism or something that I learned, like I'm good at or not good at one point in time.
Yeah.
And so I think when I'm facilitating groups or when I'm entering into uh, a space of guiding art therapy experiences, I have some core rules that I kind of set up. I'm okay to share these publicly.
Oh yeah, that'd be
No,
great.
but
We'll
I
put it in the
think
show
that like
notes.
the thing that I always say is this is a safe, kind, non-judgmental space, and we're not judging your artwork. And then I constantly remind people to try to stay away from what I call the three C's, which is criticism, comparison, and critique. So I'm not critiquing your artwork. I hope you're not critiquing your artwork either. And we're not going to try to compare our artwork to other people's. We're also not going to try to compare our experience to other people's. So if you're having like a challenging art experience and someone's over there just loving their drawing, we're not comparing our experiences of the art making process. We're not comparing the experiences of our stories. So trying to stay away from that comparison. And then also criticism. And then something that you know about, we can talk about this more later, but that one of the hardest things is to not make any comments about artwork. We've learned like, oh, that's so good or that's so pretty. And even trying to stay away from those comments can be really challenging, but
Yeah,
if we make those comments, then it is a judgment still. It's still kind of like seeking this like approval from whatever their process was. And if you don't say that to the next picture or the next person beside you, then that brings up the comparison aspect. So we try to stay away from those comments as well. So also keeping that
absolutely.
safe. Yeah.
I think as art therapists, so much of our training is in that safety, and we're very careful how we talk about a client's artwork, how we talk about them and their creative process, right?
Mhm.
And I have found it very helpful also being a parent, with my kids, because of course we like, that's so great. And sometimes, of course, that slips out, non-clinical setting. But, the question's like, wow, tell me more. Or wow, I saw you worked really hard on that, right? More things that are turn it back to the goodness of just creation,
Yeah.
and that I accept all of them and no matter what they make, and so it's been so helpful as a parent also to have this way of treating our work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of comes back to the training of like what is art therapy and what is not art therapy, is that art therapists have a different way of thinking, a different way of speaking, a different way we're guiding the process than versus like doing art in therapy.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a lot. The big difference there is, we're not using, it's not like an art techniques book or, there's a lot of like art
Yeah.
therapy toolkit or something, art therapy tools or guidebooks, but we're not doing projects or like doing art therapy. We're guiding from a place of the way that we are interacting and the way that we're holding space, the way that we're thinking about space and being. So I always do this because I think it's like a file drawer.
What do you mean? Like, yeah, what's in the files? What do you mean?
Yeah, like a mental file drawer. So I think art therapists, like we have our psychotherapy tools, our psychotherapy file drawer of IFS therapy, EMDR, strengths-based, solution-focused, all of these other therapy approaches. But then we have another file drawer of all of these other art therapy approaches and techniques and skills and patience and ways to learn and hold space and how to hold really difficult things that come up outside of ourselves, difficult images that maybe are too, I always say, like, this is a place where we are trained to hold something that is maybe too hard to even say in words.
Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it. And I think also I think the reason why I often don't talk about my training as an art therapist because it's so integrated in what I do. I mean, obviously, not, I'm talk a lot more about financial therapy, but the two really are integrated for me where my experience with a client, whether or not they are making art, is very visual for me. And that's giving me a lot of information, instinctive stuff, my somatic experience, how I'm imagining the story they tell is like as an artistic perspective. And that's also a thing that sets art therapy apart or is distinctive in the mental health world is we're also using our sensitivity to like the mind's eye as well as the physical, what's out here and the textures and the colors and the shapes. Like we're using all of that as clinical information. It's all part of it as well as what the client's saying. Like all of it is there.
Yeah, and I think, when you're talking about money too, we're also paying attention to, is this is what the client is expressing. Are they really trying to stay in a linear logic space? And do we need to bring in some art materials, or bring in what kind of directive, what kind of materials do we need to use to pair with this to help shift into a space of more emotional processing, or what they're needing? Because sometimes staying in that safe linear logic space can be a very safe zone. And art is a way where it kind of breaks them free of that and being able to see it differently.
I think it can help a client who's feeling really stuck.
Yeah.
Like, I understand this problem and what should happen perfectly, like up here, right?
Yeah.
Why am I still blocked? And I'm like, let's bring in the art.
Yeah.
Because there's often, right, art is speaking to a really different side of the brain. Like, we have a lot more intelligences going on than just like the left
Right.
brain, XYZ kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So then it can often unblock somebody
Yeah.
and get things moving, and oh, I never saw it like that, or no, that's actually really true for my experience, that color or that formation, because we've such our brains are multitudes, but we often ignore the visual instinctive aspects of our brain. So actually, I would love, Bonnie, could you kind of set the scene? Let's say I'm coming in to an art therapy session with you,
Yeah.
and let's say it's in person, because I know you do both in person and online, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, but let's say it's in person. What is sort of like the structure of that hour? How does that go if I was to come into an art therapy session for the first time?
Yeah. I mean, I think it really depends on the client and what the client's needs are, but kind of general, like first time introducing into art therapy in an in-person setting. So usually when clients come into my office, sometimes there's people that want to do art therapy specifically. Sometimes there's people that say, "Don't make me do art. Please don't make me draw." They always say like, "Please don't make me draw. I'm just here because I know I need a therapist."
Yeah.
Um, and so what I find though in the first couple sessions, or the first session, when we start talking, there's often metaphor or imagery that they're trying to use to describe their experience. And so and I'll say all art therapists work differently, so I'm just speaking from a way that I work, is that often we'll start with talking sometimes. Sometimes. I'll give you an example of both times when it doesn't. But when it does start with talking, I'm listening for images that come up in their description and how they're sharing their experience. Because in that first session, we're doing some history gathering, assessing what the needs are. Excuse me. And so when that image comes up, I might say, "Can we map this out? Can we draw that for me? Or can we like look at this? Can we use these materials to maybe describe that image?" Or maybe I will hold up. I have this great deck of cards, called that has different images and pictures on it, and I will hold out different images and say, "Can we select an image that describes that experience?"
Oh, I do want to say I love that tool. It's a deck of cards called Mixed Emotions, and
Right.
it's so nice. Each card has a different emotion with a very
Yeah.
evocative image. And I think sometimes, especially if clients like, I don't know how I feel,
Yeah.
like I just feel bad, to look through there and get a lot more specific, because it's often a mix. We don't just feel one thing, right?
Right.
I feel anxious and hopeless about this, right? Those are like two things that obviously get mixed up together. And the images is not just the word, but the image often brings up more for the clients. I just want to shout out, I don't know who made those cards, but they're
They
great.
are great. Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's key too, is to know that we might be feeling a lot of different things all at the same time. So if we can use images to give names to those things, that helps describe the experience. And I've even used it, and I work with couples because I'm a marriage and family therapist. So sometimes using an image to say, "No, I feel like this. This is how I feel." Not like, because our words, our vocabulary around talking about emotions can be really limited sometimes, or we can get really stuck in the word of the emotion rather than describing what that experience is like that's going on inside. Okay.
I
I
love
think
it.
I steered away from your question. The original
I'm
question
sorry, because I
was,
derailed.
what's an art therapy session like? Yeah, I think there's also clients, I'll say, for like in person or virtual, it can be very similar, where if I'm opening the session with an art therapy thing, it might be, "Hey, do we need to make some art to shift gears? Let's just do uh, a moment where we kind of dump things out on a page of what's going on." Or I might guide a scribble drawing. I do this progressive relaxation with a scribble drawing to help shift into a space of a more relaxed state and help them kind of notice maybe where their nervous system was at when they were coming in. So there's different. It depends. There's different tools on what the person is needing at that time. But sometimes they can walk away from the session with an image or a word that describes their experience that they do want to share with another person and say, this was my experience, or don't want to share at all, right? And just like, this is mine. But I think it gives a lot of voice too.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It still can be a verbal process, like not necessarily, but like we're still often talking. We're talking in really different ways because there's this image or this thing that is taking some of the weight, right?
Mm.
And like in therapy a lot we talk about like externalizing something. Like narrative therapy is very much about externalizing the problem. Well, what if you actually create the problem out of clay or like a 3D thing? Now we're really externalizing it to the point where like where on the table would you like to move that thing where it feels best for you, right? We're like it's taking the idea of externalizing and really going for it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Even like relating to it. What would you like to say to it? Where in your space does it feel good? What does it need right now? And literally altering it. And just very cool stuff that's so beyond our verbal layer starts to happen when we can do that, especially with topics that, like you said so beautifully, like we just don't have words for sometimes, like grief, like trauma, like money, really, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's there. I don't know. I have a felt sense about it, but it's hard to actually talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about money and how I see that in both
Yeah.
places, right? How that comes up and some similarities there.
Well, and I'm sure, so you work mostly with couples or a lot with couples. I'm sure you see money come into the room. How does that come in and how are you working with that?
Yeah, definitely with couples. I also like I specialize in cancer care and medical trauma, so I see money comes into the room a lot when we're talking. Financial stress is often something
Yeah.
that people are experiencing, and feeling financially limited. It's can be one of the major stressors for all of, I would say, most people that I see come in. So the question was, how do I do it with couples?
Yeah, or like how about like actually more broadly?
Yeah.
Like when art therapy, since it is like a primary tool for you, well, let's talk about folks with chronic illness issues and there's obviously financial components. Yeah, I'm just wondering how are some ways that money kind of enters the room? And how might you work with that with art therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the story, right, of when you talk about money stories and kind of like people's stories, it goes together, kind of what is coming up for them. I mean, in a lot of situations that I'm working with people and there's a lot of financial stress and distress and just not having enough resources to cover what they need. So that's a factor. But I think what comes in is that am I not having enough resources, or I do a little IFS stuff, which I know you like too, where I hear the some similarities coming in is, am I not good enough, or am I not doing something well enough? Do I need to be doing something more? They're like feelings of shame, self-doubt, guilt, like all come into play, I think, for any of those environments, working with couples, working with illness, working with money,
Yeah.
is the inner critic voice and that dialogue about what is it, what am I telling myself about myself because of my money or financial situation.
Right. So you might really be taking that and really externalizing. Let's really narrow in on that voice. Where is it coming from? When did it start? Right. Maybe even making an image
I was
about
just
that
gonna say
voice.
that's where we go, right?
Yeah, that's where
Yeah, that's where we
we go.
go. Is we draw an image of that voice, if we can picture that as a character or a part of ourselves. And I always say maybe the image is just a shape. Maybe it's a scribble. Maybe
Yeah.
it's something like a big dot on a page. I don't know. But then we can start dialoguing with that image and that spot about like what is, like you said, what is it telling us? What do you need to tell it? And if it could say something to you, what would it tell you? So,
I love that. I wanted to ask, like, is there, you know, maybe an idea that you could give my listeners for if they want to do a little art therapy on their own
mhm.
beyond like adult coloring books.
Yeah.
If someone has like a journal and some colored pencils right now and are thinking about money and money stress, what might be some interesting prompts you would give them?
Oh, yeah. Um, well, if you could draw your money as a scribble, what would the scribble shape be? So like the one, I do love the scribble for 1 minute type of technique and when I'm thinking about money, just scribbling on a page with my eyes closed.
Ooh, I've never done that. Okay, I'm going to do that in the next Money Healing Club
Yeah.
meeting, y'all. That's a great idea.
Can't when you have your eyes closed when you're drawing.
And like
Yeah.
a minute is longer than you think, right? Like a minute is actually like, I'm tired of this, right? Like I
Yeah.
could see myself, like at first, maybe going into it with gusto or maybe some apprehension. And then like at 20 seconds, feeling like, okay, I'm kind of done here.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Or
no,
I'm
we're
kind of
going to
done
sit
thinking about my
here.
money and scribbling about it
I'm
for
done
a minute.
thinking about, isn't that interesting? Okay, I'm totally going to do that. I love
Yeah,
that.
or maybe if you're feeling really good about your money, the minute might go by fast, right? It could be like really slow and smooth and wonderful. Yeah.
And at the close of that minute, how might you like support the person? Especially if it was dysregulating, which it could easily be. What kinds of ways would you come to some sense of completion with it?
Yeah. I mean, so I would scribble again. That's what I would continue
Mm,
scribbling until we get to a place where it feels a little bit more relaxing. And guiding, I would maybe do some guided imagery along with it, pausing, doing some grounding techniques after the scribble. I think maybe dialoguing with the scribble, talking to it, what's going on here? And is there any room or space for grace that you can give yourself and a little extra room for kindness around that
yeah.
scribble?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, it can go so many directions too. Like, are there any, images that have come up in your scribble now that you're looking at
Yeah.
it, right? Like, is there some more additional information? Because this is all teaching distress tolerance, right? We're going to sit with this thing. You're okay to sit with this thing, especially in like a safe atmosphere with a financial therapist, or sorry, with an art therapist, or if someone's on their own, right? Like, I am okay. I'm just making a scribble about money. That's it, right?
Right.
This is not actually like a life-threatening situation. And that starts doing a lot in your brain, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, is this an okay thing for me to be with? Where you like expand that container just a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I even so if we're creating a image of our money, right? Then maybe that image is like, well, that's not an image I want to look up. That's an image that I've been feeling inside. So thank goodness that's somewhere outside of your body and not something you're holding anymore in here. But if you have that image, maybe is there anything that the image needs? Is there anything that you want to change about the image? If you were to add a support into the image, what would that look like? If there was
Yeah.
something like a big, warm, cozy blanket or cup of tea that you could offer the image, what would that look like or feel like to it? So I could just take it on forever. I can roll with this for all day.
That's my favorite one-two punch,
Yeah.
right? Make the image, maybe it's distressing, and then dialogue with it. What do you need right now? And give it to that and notice that feeling. And
Mm.
well, you know what I'm going to ask you next, Bonnie.
Yeah. Okay.
Do-
But do I?
Okay, Bonnie, if you were to, I'd like you to picture your money
Yeah.
as a creature,
Hmm.
real, imagined. Go with your first instinctive hit.
Yeah, I knew this question was coming.
It's my trademark.
I knew it was coming, but I haven't, and I have thought about that when I've listened to your podcast before. But
Okay.
today, this is different. I think
Yeah.
that I'm picturing my money as a weather pattern, and that it seems more, my money seems more seasonal. So, and maybe it's just because we're in the autumn season that I'm feeling like leaves. It's not falling off of trees, we'll tell you that, but
I don't grow on trees,
yeah,
folks.
yeah,
I
and
do
it's
know
not
that.
coming from that. But yeah, I do think that there's like there's times, I think there's ebbs and
Yeah.
flows and times when it changes. And maybe there's a sense of groundedness in that there might be times where it feels like a little bit of a dip and sometimes where it feels like a little bit of a rise. And
Yeah.
there's a more of like a seasonal flow to it rather than it feeling, yeah, I don't know, like a
That's
like a
true.
character today.
Right. Yeah, it's an experience. It almost feels, I don't know, I feel like, well,
Yeah.
my art therapist brain is in this like kind of four seasons feel with you. And
Yeah.
even I'm kind of my brain like starts flipping through the calendar,
Yeah.
right? And it is something that I think we often think, oh, it needs to stick to a monthly budget. And a monthly budget like is important,
Yeah.
but like actually it's the annual stuff that throws us off and is often the most important stuff to us. And yeah, absolutely. Especially being self-employed,
Mhm.
right? It does. There are ebbs and flows and being in business and things like that.
Yeah, and there might be a month where it's like a real financial dip, where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is a stressful dip. And maybe that helps a little bit just to know that this is going to be a month that I have a little bit less or a lot less. And this is going to be a stressful month, but maybe the next season, to remind myself that
Yeah.
there's an ebb and flow.
This is a season. And so, with this image of money as seasons, if you were to ask it, what does it need to feel more complete and okay? What does it need?
My initial thought is summer year round all day. Like,
Look, okay, y'all, I know Bonnie pretty well, and I know she just wants to live somewhere tropical, so I
yeah,
know that that's part of you.
I love the warm weather year round.
But Bonnie does not live somewhere tropical, everybody.
Just in my
Yeah,
mind. So, yeah.
yeah, but more summer, more summer. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
would say,
Yeah.
yeah, I think like, or maybe, there's that consistent weather pattern. So, yeah,
That would feel really good.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. Well,
thanks.
as my fake client, I encourage you to make some art about these
I
seasons
will
and what
now.
that feels
Yeah,
like.
try
Okay,
and cut
good.
it, do all kinds of things.
Thank you. So, Bonnie, could we close out with just sharing a little bit about how folks could work with you and your organization?
Yeah, so we run a nonprofit with me and a couple wonderful business partners called Dream Big Wellness. It specializes in cancer care, chronic illness, chronic pain, but we see everyone, adults, the children. We have four art therapists, soon to be five, and seven clinicians. And you're welcome to reach out to us at dreambigwellness.org.
And which states are you licensed in that
Washington.
folks can work with you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right now, only in
Only-
Washington, but also hop over to get on their email list,
Yeah,
even if you're not in Washington, for other trainings and other activities going on that are non-clinical.
that's right, Rachel. Yeah, got to say that. We do a lot of things. We do a lot of things at Dream Big Wellness that are uh,
You
open to
do.
more of the community. We have a lot of community partnerships and trainings, retreats, other types of partnerships that we do in the cancer care community as well. But then we do our also individual therapy services and
Well, everyone, I am very proud to be on the board of your amazing organization, and you're doing incredible work. So,
we're
yeah.
grateful to have you. Yeah. Dream Big Wellness exists because of Rachel.
I don't know about that. I think it pretty much exists because of you, honey. Well, you're doing such good work, and thank you so much for introducing everyone to art therapy. And I'm sure it will get some real gears turning. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you have made any artwork, please email me. If you'd like to share it, I'd love to see if this conversation brought up any images for you as a listener. All right, well, thank you, Bonnie, for sharing your incredible expertise with my audience.
Yeah, thank you, Rach. Oh,
Great. Oh.
thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Money Healing Club podcast. Here's the funny thing about podcasts. They are surprisingly hard to find. But once you find one that really speaks to you, you're totally in. I know it is for me. So word of mouth is truly how small shows like this grow. Maybe you even found this one because someone shared it with you. So I'm going to ask you to become a financial activist today. If this episode resonated, please send it to someone, a friend, a sibling, a colleague, your book club. I'm asking you to be the brave one who says, hey, there's something deeper going on with money for all of us. And who knows, your friends might think you're brave and maybe secretly very good at money for sharing a podcast like this. You also may find a new layer opens up in your relationships. So thank you for sharing the podcast. And we are always looking for new listener questions and stories to feature on an upcoming episode. Go on over to moneyhealingclub.com/podcast, and there's a big orange button where you can record your story, your question right there from your phone or browser. I want to hear it. And if you're looking to get more support on your money journey, there's lots of other financial therapy goodness at moneyhealingclub.com, from group programs to courses to lots of other ways you can work with me. Thank you to Sydney Harbosky at sydneyharbosky.com for podcast production support. We are also a proud member of the Feminist Podcasters Collective, where creators like me are building podcasts in a better world together. I will see you next time.